Hi, I'm Andrew and welcome to my video showcasing ambient and procedural sound design in Unreal Engine. Firstly, I acknowledge the different areas in the game: village, lake, meadow, forest and cave. These areas all need ambient sounds. So firstly, I imported the audio assets into Unreal Engine. In this example, I'll showcase it using the village as the example. I make sure the ambience file was looping, and you could override the attenuation, but I chose to create a sound attenuation. I attached it to the audio asset and sized it so it covered the area, leaving a little audio bleed. I did the same thing to the other areas. Next, I wanted to add more layers to the ambiences, which I did using sound cues. You can see this in the waterfall and meadow areas. In the sound cue, you can see that I've created a few nodes such as a modulator to change the pitch and the volume, creating variety within the ambience. Next, I wanted to add some life to the village, so I added some source loops such as the bar and the windmill. For the bar, I didn't want the music to replay when the user re-enters the village area quickly, because it would seem odd for the folk band to wait for me to re-enter every single time. I did this by going under voice management and changing it from restart to play when silent. This, however, is more intensive on the game, so I must do this sparingly, but it eliminates that problem of the music frequently repeating from the start. Next, I'll look at one-shots using sound cues. This can be heard by the lake with the frogs croaking. Firstly, imported the audio, created a sound cue, and placed all 12 frog one-shots inside the sound cue. These one-shots are picked at random, fed into a random delay, a modulator to affect the pitch, whilst looping to create a sense of different frogs croaking away. I placed multiple sound cues by the lake to create the illusion of multiple frogs croaking. I did something similar with the splashing water to simulate water disturbance from the fish, but instead of modulating the pitch, I did it to the volume. I also adopted this approach for the well dripping and fire cooking. Next, I wanted to address an issue by the waterfall and cave area, where the user could hear the waterfall through the walls of the cave. To remedy this problem, I created a box trigger, and within the event graph, I created an on-actor begin overlap. I selected the audio assets, i.e. the waterfall and birds, and referenced to them within the event graph. I created a flip-flop to fade in and out the ambient sounds when the player leaves and re-enters the cave tunnel. Speaking of birds, birds played a big role within this demo. To create variety within bird calls, for example, for owl in the tree, the owl call was broken into two, the twit and the twoo. I got 7 different variations playing at random, which is sent through a concatenator node, which plays from top to bottom. So the twit is randomly played first, followed by the twoo, which is randomly played after. I apply this to other birds in the area, and to the boat and anvil. As you can hear in the bee area by the bee huts, I've created a sound cue node with envelopes to adjust the volume of each bee, creating a sensation of the bees flying past you. Next, to make the place seem alive, I create audio triggers that the user will trigger to play audio. An example of this is with the floorboard creaking by the lake. I created a blueprint actor which has a box trigger component to play a sound cue of the floorboard creaking. I gave this a weight so there is a chance it will play or not. The reason why I gave it weight is so it doesn't get too repetitive if the user walks back and forth on that pier. Using blueprints as audio triggers is really good, but I wanted to adapt my audio trigger so that I can use it time and time again. To make the previous blueprint adaptable, I used variables, for example, of the sound and the weight, so I could create many blueprints and just drag and drop the audio I want to trigger and the weight of how likely I want the sound to trigger. Under the construction script, I've got a box reference and created a variable vector so the user can resize the trigger. Next, I wanted to create a player-oriented sound blueprint. I first create an actor blueprint, created a severe collision. Under the construction script, I created a severe reference and made it a variable for the user to adjust. I imported this magical sound that will trigger when the user is in the area. How frequently the sound will trigger will depend on what it has been set by creating a random float in the range node and creating two variables for the minimum and maximum value. I created a retrigger event so that it will pick a random number from the range instead of picking the same again and again. Next, I wanted the sound to play randomly around the player. To do this, we created a distance variable and breaking the vector down for the actor location, having a random float node for X and Y position to create randomization. For Z, we gave this a value so that the audio doesn't play underneath the player. We wanted to know exactly where the audio source is coming from, so we created a visualizer. So we created a new blueprint class and created an actor. This is where we create a static mesh and chose an object. I picked a pumpkin because why not? I then go back into the blueprint and this is where I attach a spawn actor node, which will spawn in the pumpkin acting as a visualizer. I did a similar thing for the bee hut area. And that's that. Thank you so much for watching. This was just a slight glimpse of some of the audio used in this project, but hopefully you got a sense of techniques I used to create a better ambience for the user using audio.